Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karen Anderson Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliot Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
and biblical truth
to help us thrive in love and life. Michelle, welcome back to the program. So happy to have you again. And today I want to talk about something that was really one of the reasons I started the podcast years ago. It was a way to support the message that I had for single women. As someone who had heard all the things myself, you're too picky. You must intimidate men with your education and your opinions. There's something you're doing wrong. You must be tragically flawed because you seem perfectly normal, but you are now 30 and not married, 35 and not married, then you're 40 and not married. And then finally, I got married at 42. And apparently then I was validated. Like, oh, you're okay now. Some man has chosen you, so you're okay in the society's eyes.
Yeah.
But you have a similar story of becoming a late blooming bride, shall we say, or a bride later in life and all that entails. And I love your story. I would love for you to share it with our community because you loved your single life. You were thriving as a single woman. There was nothing holding you back, nothing that was deterring you. It just hadn't happened for you.
Yeah.
And then you probably, I think at some point, probably made peace with it. And then all of a sudden, God's like, guess what? You are going to get married. So share with the audience, if you would, please.
Yes. Well, even going back to what you'd said about all the messages,
Yes.
I heard them all too. So let's
course.
just start by saying, if someone is listening who knows an older single woman, I don't mean this rude, but you say whatever you want to men. We're talking to women who feel like they're dying on the vine, past even sometimes childbearing age.
Yeah.
I said, forget somebody marrying the wife of their youth. I'm so past that because I didn't get married till 60. Let me just put that there for the first time. And so the messages that we often give to single women are so hurtful. And one of the worst I ever heard when you use the word normal, I literally had someone to say, oh, you're not married? I forget what age it was. Let's say 50. And I'm like, no, you've never been married? Nope. Really? Wow. You seem so normal. To my face.
Okay. Just say the quiet part out loud. Just say it.
That would have been better left unsaid.
I would agree.
But the things that people have said have been so hurtful. And like you just said, why are we validated once we're married? And the assumption is something's wrong with you if you haven't. So the backstory is that, oldest of 4 daughters, all 3 of my sisters were married. I love being an aunt, love kids. I would have little girls spend the night with me and love on them or take kids from my church out on like a fun lunch after church and buy them a doll. Little girls were who I mostly invest. Actually, no, you know what? I can remember. You remember when those singing Elmos came out?
Yes.
I can remember a little boy from my church and I took him out on a date, got him a singing Elmo. Again, his parents loved it. The little girls that spent the night, I took their little brother went, why don't I get time with you?
Right.
Loving on other people's kids was a way that I thrived in my singleness because it filled that space in my heart that was like, I want to be a mom, but I don't get to. Well, that was a gift to other people that were married. But okay, back to the single story. So like you, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Now let me back up and say that the bulk of my 30s were spent, Karen, doing my own healing work. So I'm a Bible college grad. I'm doing youth ministry as a side hustle, if you will. I'm a dental assistant by trade at that point. Love youth ministry and music ministry. Those were kind of my things through my 30s. And then I hit a dating relationship that was really toxic. 2-year dating relationship that's what launched me into doing my own counseling work. One of the times we broke up, I wrote down 66 things he told me he didn't like about me. When we broke up one time, I'm like, I can't love him anymore. I mean, literally everything. I weighed too much. I laughed too loud. I wrote cute and awesome too much on cards and smiley faces. And I interrupted. And I mean, everything about me, like a rational human being would say, why stay with that person? And I think we hear that story a lot of times with single women. Or women that are dating or going, you're so sharp over here professionally. What's going on in your personal life? Why are you taking that?
Mhm.
Well, a lot of times it's because we have unhealed wounds that we're like
Mhm.
trying to meet that void or assuage the wound, fill the void. And so, unbeknownst to me, unconsciously, I'm drawn to an abuser who's like
Mhm.
my grandfather who sexually molested me and actually some others. It's a pretty gnarly story. But that stuff was unhealed, and so unbeknownst to me, that was familiar on the
Mhm.
inside of me. I was
Mhm.
so self-critical and so judgmental, had an eating disorder, I had binge eating disorder, and so all this stuff was just I was a mess on the inside, even though I was doing ministry on the outside, right?
Right.
Love Jesus through all of that. But again, my issues on the inside blocked me, especially during my 30s where because I was a musician, I'm playing the piano or singing in wedding or in a wedding
Mhm.
after
Mhm.
wedding in my 30s and 40s.
Mhm.
I'm mentoring women because I still love Jesus through all the
Mhm.
mess inside that was coming up to be healed. And so after all that, I then now am starting my private practice late in my 30s, into my 40s, my 50s. And as you know, the pool of men is getting much smaller, you being a
Mhm.
42-year-old bride. And so when
Mhm.
I was 55, I literally sensed that God was leading me to make a choice. And I chose singleness. I said, I'm going to be single the rest of my life. And at that point, I've been doing men's ministry, working with girl dads for a few years for about 5 years at that point. And I said, till every heart of every dad with a daughter in this nation has turned, heart
Mhm.
turns to his
Right.
daughter, I'm not shutting up. That's my whole thing. So I'm
Mhm.
writing books,
Mhm.
I'm podcasting, I'm speaking at men's conferences, I'm coaching and counseling dads, I'm leading the ABBA Project, a group that I was doing for girl dads every year, 12 dads and me. And I'm like, I'm all in. I'm doing this till my dying breath. I was like, anybody can get married, but this is a call from God. That's my
Mhm.
lane. That's
Mhm.
not what every woman's doing. I'm all in. And
Mhm.
here's the other thing I'll add as a little aside. I think most women that have a sexual abuse history oftentimes either go to promiscuity, like, hey, I'm already damaged
Mhm.
goods, I don't really care anymore, or frigidity, like, I'm shutting down for business.
Mm.
I actually
Mhm.
was on that side, but I just want to say, crazy assignment God gave me to travel from Venus to Mars to work with men.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one of the times where I was leading the ABBA project, 12 Men and Me, one night, I had an aha moment, Karen, that, oh, wow, some of my abuse was actually done in this kind of a setting with men
Mm.
around. And now his redemption is I'm there
Mm.
and there's nowhere else I would rather be now as a woman in a group with men. That's how much healing God's done in my life. So
Wow.
before I ever got married, what I would often say to women is I don't care if he loves Jesus and I don't care if he loves his mama, because that's a given. You better be
Mhm.
looking for one like that. But that that's a lot of men. That still is not
Mhm.
the one for you. But I
Mhm.
always say, do your visions line up? If
Mm.
you let God arrange the marriage and give you a man where you're running alongside each other and your visions line up,
Mhm.
it's so easy.
Mm.
So here I had a colleague of mine, had known him. He wrote the foreword to my first book in 2014, met him at a actually a counseling conference. He was doing a fathering seminar. So men's ministry was his lane. Promise Keepers, youngest voice on that platform, speaker then through those years,
Mhm.
and his name is
Mhm.
Ken Canfield. And so he had written this forward to my book. I knew his wife, Dee. I'd been in their home in Kansas City. I lived in Oregon and loved her. Would connect with them at the conferences. We'd sit together. I mean, and she had a degenerative nerve disease and she died in 2019. So at this point, I've been single. I'm 59 at that point for a lot of years, my whole life. And one day, Ken and I had talked on the phone. I hung up. He had lots of different people he would call after Dee died. 6 weeks after she died, we hung up and I got this download from God. And I'm like, what was that? And I wrote in my journal, God, I'll marry Ken if you ask me to. And I'm like,
Wow.
what was that? I told my 3 closest friends that next week, you're never going to believe the download I got from God. I think he wants me to marry Ken. All 3 said, I know, God already told me.
No.
What? But I said to each of them, don't ever say one thing to me. I'm not doing that whole girl thing of, have you heard from him? What's
Yeah.
going on? I'm like, I ain't doing that. Zip. Anything you want to say, you turn it into prayer because do not talk to me because I got to pace with the Lord here. If this is of him, I got to get out of the way because I think as women, sometimes, especially the older, we're like, we can position ourselves to be seen. I'm in the same
Mhm.
room. Oh, I'm at a wedding. Like, of
Mhm.
course, that's been my story. I
Mhm.
noticed, do you have a ring on? All the
Mm.
things, because that
Right.
was still in my heart.
Right.
And yet, at this point in my life, I had closed that off. God, I've
Mhm.
given you this. And I truly did not have a desire to get married anymore. So this was all obedience, not romance.
Mm.
And so 3 friends confirm it. There's different details, but let's say December of 19. I said, God, out of Matthew 1, what's conceived in me is of the Holy Spirit. Just like Mary, the mother of Jesus. I said, now wake Joseph up and tell him to come take Mary home as his wife. That's exactly what happened. And my best friend prayed that God would awaken him to the love that was here before the end of the year.
Wow.
So on Christmas Day, I wrote him a letter in my journal. I said, you already have my whole heart. I ended up using these in my vows, by the way. You already have my whole heart. I love the way you love Dee and your grandchildren and your children. I love that you
Wow.
love justice and mercy and you walk humbly with your God. And I ended by saying, you have my whole heart. This is on Christmas Day. There's still nothing. I've not played my hand. I've not said anything. I'm just like, God, if this is of you, you arrange it. So he reads the chronological Bible every year. He gets to Revelation 22 on December 31st, where he and all the kids and grandkids gather every year that week between Christmas and New Year's. First year without mom, wife,
Mhm.
grandma. She was an
Mhm.
amazing grandmother, Nana. Loved those grandkids. And he literally read chapter 22 later than he usually does because he'd been with the kids and they went to Union
Mhm.
Station. It's now Kansas City. He gets home and he writes at midnight. 2 a.m. his time, midnight Portland time. God did awaken him to love that was here by the end of the year. And he has wrote in his Bible next to the bride and the bridegroom, Michelle, next to that verse in Revelation 22, had not considered
That's
me
crazy.
prior to that. Download from God, calls me the next day, January 1st of 20, has a stupid Android, so I can't even see the guy. And he says, how would you, I have a question I want to ask you. My heart's going.
Of
And I'm writing it
course.
down because
Yeah.
I can't see him. I'm
Yeah.
verbatim writing it down. Do you want to hear what he said? Listen to this
Yes.
pickup line. How would you like to move our professional relationship to a personal one? And I'm
I like it.
listening and my heart's
Yeah.
going. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the answer to prayer I've been waiting for. And he said, I just realized I'm deeply in love with you and want to marry you. And I'll call your dad if you want me to.
Oh, I
I'm like,
love that.
well, he had no idea what I'd say. I did not play my hand. It's letting God arrange the marriage and letting him bring a Boaz and a Ruth together. And so I said,
Oh
well,
my
I wrote
gosh.
you a letter a week ago today in my journal. I'd like to read you right now.
Oh
And he
my
was like, I want to
gosh.
fly in a plane right now to you. And he called my dad, who was 81 at the
I
time.
love that.
Uh, I'm asking for your daughter's hand in marriage. And he said, I'm proposing now over the phone without a ring. And then we got engaged at Museum of the Bible. He surprised me in
Oh my
February. The next month,
gosh.
I'd gone for the National Prayer Breakfast, and he
Mhm.
coordinated with friends and got us over there. I have a video of our proposal. It was beautiful. A friend did
Mm.
that. And then we invited 425 to our wedding because nobody thought I'd ever get married. I'm now 60 at that point. And people were so happy a widower was getting married again. And then COVID hit. I cried so many tears for that dream that I had waited for.
Yes. Oh my
And
gosh.
and
Yeah.
long story short, we got married on Father's Day weekend because we both are in fathering ministry.
Mhm.
And one of the things I'll highlight is I had written a song probably 25 years before that I
Oh
never
no.
wrote down. And
No.
a few years earlier, I'd put it in my phone because I went, wait, I wrote a song once. I sang it to him at our wedding as a surprise.
Stop it.
Come on. Do you want to hear the chorus? I'll
I
just give
do.
you the chorus.
I
Here's
want
how the
to
chorus goes.
absolutely.
To have and to hold, I give my vow. To have and to hold, right here, right now. To have and to hold, from this day on. To have and to hold, this is where I belong.
Oh.
So I surprised him and we got
Oh
married
my
on Father's Day weekend, June
gosh.
20th of 20. And I've now been married 6 years. Go figure.
And
And now our 20th grandbaby's on the way. And I live in
and you wr
Arkansas from Oregon, like
and
a whole new assignment from God.
oh my goodness. And you had written that song, like, when you were young and you had that
Yeah.
dream, and then you I don't know, you had to place that dream on the altar, so to speak,
Yeah.
and
So
go to
many
God,
times over and over,
yeah, and that's
laying
not
it down.
easy, especially for women. Well, I don't know, men probably we're wired for that
Yes.
connection. I always thought when I was those years that I was single, and I'd sometimes get on myself, like, "What's your we were raised I was raised in the '70s, right? So it's like, you don't need a man." And I'm like, "But I want one." And then kind of getting on myself like, "Gosh, don't be needy." It's like, I'm not needy. I'm wired the way that most of us are wired
Yes.
by God to desire that deepest intimacy with my
Totally.
husband. It's not happening on my timeline and the
Yeah.
frustration and therein
Yeah.
and that you wrote that song and God gave you your husband eventually to be able to sing it to him. That's so beautiful. I think
And
that's
people
such a
would say,
story
"Oh,"
of hope.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
people would say, "Oh, Michelle, you're set in your ways. It's gonna be really hard to
Oh.
change." And I'm like, again, we need to stop projecting onto other people's
Mhm.
stories, our beliefs or our opinions or our experiences. But it really, I'm not kidding you, has not been hard. Like, I was so ready for that. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I was not fully aware of, and this is gonna literally probably have people laughing at me going, "How did you not know that? You do this professionally and you cut what?" I didn't realize how much time you spend with that person.
I
It is a lot of time. So
It
I think
is.
in my fantasy world, it was different. Like, I knew it, but I didn't know it. I'm like, "You better really, really like that person and
Mhm.
not just the fantasy of a wedding or
Mhm.
marriage." It is
Mhm.
you gotta really know you like that person and let God arrange it. But like you said, I cried so many tears through the years.
Mm.
And finally, another part of the story that hopefully will speak to women, like you said, giving them hope, is in
Mhm.
the waiting. This is not just a platitude or a pat answer, but the more you can fall in love with Jesus and
Mhm.
trust the Father that
Mhm.
he knows what you need when you need it. It's
Mhm.
really hard to trust through the tears. Like, I love Psalm 38:9. It says, "All my longings lie open before you, O Lord." How
Mhm.
do you have open longings when you're hurting? They hurt more when they're open, and we wanna
Mhm.
close up. "I don't need a
Mhm.
man, I'm fine," and I'm like,
Right.
"But I really do want one, and I really
Right.
do long for one," and then
Right.
I was a Hallmark watching girl. I hate to admit that, but I really was, and that's
Oh.
why when a friend of mine asked me to join a book called Written in Heaven last year, where 40 women all tell one God story that was only God could write in heaven. Of course, I
Mhm.
had to write about this one because I still have
Mhm.
such a heart for single women. In fact,
Mhm.
I call myself a seasoned single. And but I
Mhm.
called my story better than Hallmark. So I'm like,
Mm.
when God arranges a man where your visions line up, is it's gonna be better than a Hallmark story, better
Yeah.
than just the romance version. It's gonna
Yep.
be the reality version, and I think to state the obvious with my story is, had I bit earlier, because I did the not healthy one long time before, I wouldn't have had what I believe is the best fit for me. Like,
Right.
it was a needle in a haystack of who'd be a fit for me. Ken is that needle in a haystack, and
Mhm.
I say that 6 years in, I would marry him
Mhm.
again in a heartbeat. Like, sometimes
Mhm.
people are like, "Oh, I didn't know I was getting into that." Oh my
Right.
goodness. He's the best fit for me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I'm sure you would say that same thing for your
Yep.
story. And so, that isn't every woman's story. They're like, "Oh, man, if I knew then what I know now, I would never have gotten into this." And that's who we see in
Mhm.
our profession, right? Is a
Mhm.
lot of hurting stories. And so wait for God's timing because the man that he had for me wasn't available during the years. He was
Mhm.
loving a wife, even
Mhm.
caring for her till the last 2 days of her life. He
Mm.
cared for her. He kept his vows till death do us part. And he says to me, "Because of the suffering I went through with D, I'm a better husband to you. I'm way more
Mm.
sensitive, way more dialed in." And that's the kind of husband I needed. So
Mhm.
just remember, women, where your heart is open, your longings are open, and you cry it out. And
Mhm.
you, as Karen beautifully said, you keep laying that on the altar, is that God knows
Mhm.
when, He knows who, He knows where, He knows how that's gonna look. And
Mhm.
in the meantime, as Ion Van Zant calls it, what do you do
Mhm.
between then and now? In the meantime, you
Mhm.
keep falling in love with Jesus, and you let his love massage the wounds, you let the Father's love
Mhm.
massage those wounds and heal them, you'll be ready to step right in
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
he arranges that marriage for you.
Mhm. God's timing is always perfect, but it is so difficult. And during those moments where I think about how exactly what you said, I do think, and Elliot and I, my co-host, who I can't wait for you to meet, we have had because he got married right out of college. He graduated from Christian college and
Oh,
got
yeah.
married like 2 weeks later.
Okay.
And so he was the early marriage, growing up together. And there are some beautiful things about that. First and foremost, you don't experience some of that loneliness, that deep
Mhm.
loneliness that we felt as adults, single.
Yeah.
You grow up together, and there can be pros and cons there. And as you said earlier, sometimes people grow up with someone and it really wasn't the best fit, but they're able to have
Yeah.
children, and you and I weren't able to do that. So
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
things that happen as a later bride that are losses.
Yeah.
But one of the strengths that we have, and this is something I've always reiterated to the women that I used to work with when I was doing some single women coaching and groups and so forth, is that the beauty that I think, and similar, my husband's not a widower, he divorced, but him going through the loneliness, so I didn't see the loneliness as the same, but he was in a
Oh.
marriage that started to feel lonely, and I don't know that
Mm.
there's any more deeper loneliness than being with someone that you're supposed to have the deepest
Yeah.
intimacy with, and yet
Right.
feeling very
Yeah.
alone and alienated and not seen and not
Mm.
heard and not valued. So he had his
Yeah.
own loneliness in a context of a marriage that wasn't working.
Mm.
I had the loneliness of being single much longer than I
Yeah.
wanted to be, but we
Uh,
both learned, okay, it's gotta be God's gotta fill that void.
yeah.
You can't look to your spouse. You can't no one's making you happy. That's not anyone else's job.
Yeah.
It's you every morning.
Yeah.
God, you and me, we got this today.
Whom have
When
I
I
in heaven but you?
Right,
You don't seem like
right.
enough.
It never does. And
Right.
the other day I was just talking to Dan about that. I go, I know that God knows that that is a feeling we have
Yeah.
because sometimes I come to Dan before I come to God. And I know
Yeah.
intellectually and that I need to go to God first, but God also provided Dan for me. So I don't think I'm
Right.
not sinning by doing that. I
Right.
am.
Yeah.
And God and Dan demonstrates his love for God by being a faithful, loving, nurturing, sensitive husband.
Yeah.
So but I also know that the point that I think the strength we got having married later is that we don't do that. What I think is easier for younger couples to do, like look to each other like, make me happy. I'm
Yeah.
not happy. You fix this. Even when they know that they should be going to God, but because they met their soulmate so early,
Yeah.
I think the tendency is that they can look at each other and go, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing for me now? I'm not happy. You need to make it happen
Yeah.
and so forth. What do you think about all that as far as just comparing the two trajectories? And then of course your husband had married at least, I don't know how young, but young enough. And
Young, young
yeah,
20s,
yeah,
and then again, he went through a loneliness through a wife's health
r-
crisis
right.
and less of her available for him. So the same thing is at the end of our lives when we stand before the Lord going, "Yeah, you are all that matters." I wish I
Right.
would have known that all through my life, is that he's drawing us, the Father's wooing us to his heart, Jesus is wooing us
Hmm.
there. One of my favorite books is Hind's Feet on High Places. Have you heard that one before?
Hmm.
With the
Hmm.
little character Much
Yes.
Afraid, and she's supposed to marry into the fearing family, and the shepherd says, "I know you have mangled feet, but I'm calling you to the high places, and I'm gonna give you 2 traveling companions, sorrow and suffering, and
Hmm.
you need to hold on to
Yay.
them." So it's this whole journey through the desert and into the sea of loneliness by there and the forest of temptation, all these things. It's an allegory, right? But my favorite quote in that book, which when you said altar, it brought this to mind because this is the stance in singleness or whether it's childlessness, women that can't,
Hmm.
they're infertile and they're struggling that way or whatever it is. We all have something where our heart is hurting and longing for more here on earth, right? And so this truth is so profound for wherever we're at. We're much afraid finally says to the shepherd, "Bind me to the altar so I might not be found struggling while the will of my Lord is done." She goes, like, I keep wanting to hop off going, I don't want you
Hmm.
to do deep surgery, on
Hmm.
my longing.
Hmm.
But she finally says, "Bind me here." because I know that I can trust you to clean out things that aren't like you and do the surgery so that I
Mhm.
can be more like you. And I've carried that for probably half my life, if not more. Just, okay, I give you permission to do whatever you need to do to take me to the high places. In fact, I love her. The shepherd said, anytime you want to call for me, call me. And when she starts to have sorrow and suffering, take her into the desert. She calls for him and he shows up and she goes, I'm not supposed to go down. You said
Mhm.
I'm going up to the high
Right.
places, not down to the desert. He said, no, that is the way to the high places. And she
Mhm.
says, okay, because you said it, I'll trust you. I'll go there. And I'm just like, that's what we have to do with our singleness because it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know what to do with this longing.
Mhm.
And so the loneliness, whether it's in a lifeless marriage or because we don't have children or because we're not married, I mean, I never felt like I could hold a man's gaze. That's what I would say. Like, I felt
Mm.
like they looked right past me and I'm like,
Aw,
or then I,
yeah.
I I remember one time going into a pottery barn and a woman said, oh, do you want me to put that vase? I got a red vase. You want me to wrap it up? Are you doing more shopping in the mall? Oh, yeah. I get home and I open it up and she says, call me. Here's my phone number. And I'm like,
Oh.
okay, women are drawn to me, but I can't get a man. What's up with this? Like,
Right, right,
what is
right.
going on? That's not really where I'm wired, dear Lord.
Right.
I believe you have a man for me. So it's how do you have faith in the middle of the hard thing? Well,
Mhm.
I've got a verse for you. Isaiah 54. I turned it into a rap. I can either give it to you or I can give you the rap
You gotta
version.
wrap it, you gotta
Okay,
wrap it.
here's the rap. Sing, O barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, says the Lord. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent curtain wide. Do not hold back. Do not hold back. Do not hold back. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes, for you will stretch out to the right and to the left, and your descendants will dispossess nations, and they will settle in desolate cities. And then
Yeah,
it
we need
says, for your maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name. For your maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name.
I'm hearing, like, some, like, remix in the backbeat there, like, I think we need a DJ to just soup that up for us.
But it's like, sing, O barren woman who never
Mhm.
bore a child. But more
Yeah.
are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband. It's like if you're in a season of singleness, whether divorced or never married, go love on some other people's kids.
Yeah.
I've even invited couples out for dinner and I pay, and the three of us go out. Instead of waiting to be invited, initiate. I want
Mhm.
a date on Saturday night, no guys coming around. Who could I bless? Pay for their
Mhm.
babysitting. Take them
Mhm.
out to dinner. Let it be a three of you. Because sometimes they've gone,
Mhm.
I thought you'd be out, think not want to be a third wheel. I'm like, I don't care. Let's go out. Let's go have fun.
Yeah.
Like there's ways that I lived single where, like you
Mhm.
said, I really did thrive and I grieved. It was all the
Mhm.
things.
Right, right,
I mean,
right,
how did you do it? How did you stay upright and not settle? I don't mean this disrespectfully to men, but
yes.
for a loser. Like, well, he'll do. He's not Mr.
Yeah.
Right, but he's Mr. Right now. How did you do it, Karen? How did you hold out with faith for God's best?
Well, I almost didn't, and I almost settled, and that's, again, not for a loser because it's not even like, to your point, it's not that, it's just settling is if this doesn't feel like the heart connection it should feel,
Yeah.
and that you go ahead and do it, and I was 34 when I was supposed to get married, and 2 months before, I called it off because
Wow.
and it was harder, Michelle, because he was a stand-up guy. This was a really good man,
Uh-huh.
and he was driven, and he was kind, and he was loving, and he would have made a great father, and I looked at all the so on paper, we really looked
Uh-huh.
great together. Our resumes aligned, but there just wasn't that heart connection, and I just knew myself. I'm like, "I'm gonna be the woman who's gonna, at my 20th anniversary, look across the room and see a couple who's really in love and be jealous knowing that I've just been phoning it in for 20 years, and I have the house, and I
Uh-huh.
have the kids and the picket fence, but I'm never gonna be like, I'll always wonder what if." So, I almost did fall into that just because I was 34 and the clock is ticking and all the reasons that women do. I understand it. But I wrote a chapter in my book that I talked about, and I use that exact term you use, good enough. Is good enough good enough? Is good enough good enough for some people? I think some people it is. But
Mm.
in my heart, again, going back to we talked about people who get married younger, which is a blessing. If God gives you your person early, praise God. What a
Right,
blessing.
right.
But I do think sometimes people do, it seems like the next logical step. Or for sure, you went to Bible college, I went to Christian college. It's very
Yeah.
often people get nervous about how will I meet someone out in that big, bad, scary world. And if you do that, I think God can redeem that too. But I just knew the way I was wired, I would always wonder what if.
Mm.
And then what finally allowed me in my last several months of engagement, where I was in a very, very much an existential crisis of like, what am I doing? I
Oh,
don't think this is
sure.
right, but can I call it off? I don't know if I have the courage to do that. I also realized how it was the least loving thing I could do is to walk down an aisle with a man who thinks he's marrying the love of his life. And I'm
Oh,
saying, you're good enough. That's so unloving. And in a church, saying vows before God and everyone who loves me, that freaked me out. I was like, I can't say those vows. I can't say them. I'm saying them to God and I
wow.
don't mean them. I can't do that. I can't.
You're
I just,
so brave. You're
thank you.
so
But
what did he end up like saying? Did he try to talk you out of it? Did he say,
yeah.
"I've kind of thought it too"?
No, he was not receiving it, and I felt bad because I hadn't meant to lie, but I've been living a lie. Now,
Oh,
again, it wasn't overt. It
yeah.
wasn't like I'm lying to you, but and I did love him, but
Right.
I wasn't in love with him to the degree I needed to be to get married. So
Yeah.
I was living a lie to him and to myself. And so, yeah, again, it was a very, very rough, it's a long time ago now, but it's still very rough to think about that. But
Yeah.
after that, so now I'm 34, I'm living in Chicago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here I go again on my own.
And you had friends supporting you and parents, or did anybody try to talk you out of it?
No one tried to talk me out of it. My mom,
That's
a
the
little,
key piece.
oh, for sure. My mom was like, oh no, just because she's like, oh, thank goodness, finally
Yeah.
my single daughter's finally met someone and she lives in this big scary city and now she'll be protected. And so for all, but
Uh,
even, I mean, even very, like the first time I told I think I emailed my parents, I'm like, I don't think I can go through with this. I have to postpone. I started with a postponement. I have to postpone this for sure. And then we'll go
oh,
from there. And then
uh-huh.
my parents were like, come home. They lived in Cincinnati at the time and I was living in Chicago and they just wanted to love on me. And very quickly within the first couple conversations, my dad was like, he's a really great guy. We just never really saw the fit with the two of you. So
Oh,
I had that support.
oh,
My maid of honor and I took off the weekend I was supposed to get married. We took off for Puerto Vallarta for a girls' trip. Just like didn't want to be in Chicago. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be way just
yeah.
like somewhere else. But all that to say, that was a hard. Yeah, for me, what I did was I absolutely had to just lean into my faith. I had to, and that's the only thing that was
Yep.
going to
Come on.
sustain me
Yeah.
because I had to go, God,
Yeah.
and I had to go so I was raised American Baptist. So a lot of doctrine and a lot of groundedness and good
Mm.
teaching, but maybe like I need a little bit of that apostolic kind of like Assemblies of God kind of like faith, like this is not a setback, this is a setting, God setting you up. I needed a
Woo!
little bit of
Stop
that.
it.
Yeah. Right. I needed to go into
Yeah.
that. I lean into that part of my faith that I hadn't explored so much. So that was what God was, I think, teaching me in that moment. It's like, the word and now it's
Mm.
time to exercise it. Now it's time to go read that verse. Do you believe it or not? You've memorized it. You memorized it in vacation Bible school.
Here's what I want to say to you,
Yeah.
Karen, is how courageous you were at that age to say, I have to have everything align. My heart, my spirit, my thoughts, my emotions, instead of women bypassing that and going, push it down,
Yeah.
ignore it. And then you walked out with courage, a decision that if I'm doing the math right, then you didn't get married for 7 years, 6, 7.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
And so
No,
you
yeah, because the
walked
third,
it
yeah.
out. You didn't just rebound. And I
Okay.
think just learning to live again with open longings is such a key. And you said leaning into your faith was a key part of
Yeah.
that. And you and I are living examples that God is always writing a story. I love in Psalm 18:24 in the message, it says, God rewrote the text of my life when I opened the book of my heart to his
Hmm.
eyes. So I think, again, we're just talking about living with openness and open hearts, which is where we thrive as women, which means
Yeah.
crying your way through it, keep laying
Hmm.
this on the altar, surrendering, and knowing that God is never forgetting you. He's still writing your story and he's a good God.
I love that. I also want to be totally transparent. I was afraid I would cheat on him because the way God had wired me, I
Oh.
wanted that deep, intense passion. So I had
Come
to
on.
look myself. I'm just being honest.
Okay.
I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, you want that. You're wired to desire that kind of intense
Oh,
chemistry, passion, and you don't have it here. It's Sternberg's triangle theory of love, which I think is so useful, a
wow.
model. It's the consummate love, he calls it, the total package, where you have the intimacy, not sexual here. We're talking about the best friendship. You have the commitment, the faithfulness, the fidelity, and then you have the passion, the sexual chemistry.
Wow.
And I didn't feel that passion for my ex-fiance. And I was like, I'm going to cheat on this man. And I couldn't live with myself if I did that.
Of
So
course.
I got real raw and real. I've never admitted that to anyone.
Okay,
I mean, maybe my besties, but
that is so profound because there's no reason to hold that back. There's not shame, right? There's no shame.
feels a little
Look
shameful to be like,
but
I
what if
might have
it's
cheated on
nuts
my.
is you can look to him and be radiant and have your
Yeah.
face not covered with shame. Like being honest, because truth sets us free. Not just Jesus as the truth, but I think that principle to go, how many women are going to go, actually, I've had that thought, but nobody's ever talked about that
Right.
openly. Thank you, Dr. Karen, for leading the way.
I don't know. It's just something that I knew I could never live with myself if I did that.
Yeah.
And those children that I so desperately wanted that he would have been able to give me because I was young enough still, what would they have thought when it's like they finally realized mom and dad don't really love each other? Mom certainly is throwing dad shade. I don't know. Mom's been out of town for the last couple of weeks for work. Like they're going to put things together.
Oh,
Like
man.
this is like I was going to like next generations
things.
of damage that I would
Yeah.
do by being inauthentic, by not
Wow.
listening to God and waiting for his best for me
Yeah.
and it wouldn't have been loving for him either.
Yeah.
It would have been cruel.
So we both have done the same thing. We've cried, we've waited, we've wondered, we've built communities around us, connected with people that can support us through all the things,
Yeah.
leaned into our faith, trusted Jesus. And it's not a pan answer, but it sure led us both to really amazing men that we now thank God that we're married to. So it's not just being married, it's being married. I've said to Ken, I don't just love being married, I love being married to you.
That's right. It's not about marriage per se. It's about
Totally.
having the kind of fluid, easy marriage. I say
Yeah.
my marriage is very easy.
Me
And
too.
my brother pushes back. He's like, I don't know, easy. I'm like, well, you got married young. Maybe your marriage hasn't been quite as easy. And he would argue that that's true. And I would argue that part of the reason our marriage is so easy is because of the things we've talked about, that we were old enough to really know ourselves, to know it was a good fit. We'd gone through struggles, had to realize my happiness has to come from God. I can't look to my partner to fulfill me completely, blah, blah, blah. You have to go. Can you pray us out real quickly?
Yes.
And thank you again so much. And I hope to have you back very, very soon.
Oh, I've so been filled up with this conversation because we're talking about something that both of us have lived through.
Yes.
That isn't everybody's experience. So to find another woman that's been through it, it's just life-giving. And I just have loved being with you. So
thank you so much.
So Father, Son, and Spirit, you don't do anything apart from each other. And I ask that right now for those women listening who are trying to live with their longings open and it makes them hurt more, that you would just right now, Holy Spirit, put a balm of Gilead on the hurting heart of your daughters, Jeremiah 8 talks about, a balm of Gilead there over the place where she has longings that you know she has. And so, Jesus, we know that you hear cries, that you're an advocate, and you bring all of this to the Father. And so, God, I pray right now for the men that you have for these women, that you would be letting these men walk in purity, walk in wholeness, walk in being hard workers and commitment to their families and to their values and to you, God. Be preparing them for the time that maybe these women are ready before these men, but would you be working in the hearts of men in this country to raise them up to be the men that we have prayed for and believed God for, that have a capacity to love and to serve and to give and be loved and served and be given to in symmetry and in partnership with women who are ready to love and be loved. So God, we just ask for you to do things beyond what we can imagine or ask or think. And we ask things that are worthy of a king's giving. In the mighty name of Jesus, grow our faith. Amen.
Amen.
Love and Life with Dr. Karen and Pastor Elliot is produced by Tim May and executive producer Dr. Karen Anderson-Abel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.